Hello and welcome to the third video in the 401k Control Process Overview series. By now you have reviewed the action report, chosen your adaptive asset allocation portfolio, populated the reallocation worksheet with the desired percentages, and also come up with your allocation plan and put in your target funds and fund percentages. We're now going to enter certainly the most complicated and time-consuming portion of the process. And just a word of advice up front, you may wish to tap into your broker's research or support teams to help you through this process. But I'm going to show you an example using my own Merrill Lynch account and the research capabilities that Merrill Lynch offers. As a review, we have populated the reallocation worksheet with our target funds. As you may recall, we have 4 funds that we're going to be looking for in the domestic equities asset class, 2 sector funds, 1 international fund, and 2 fixed income bond funds. I'll also refer you again to Appendix D of the reallocation process document, where we have laid out some guidelines for you to follow in terms of determining how and what funds to invest in. If you look at item number 2, we have suggested that you're looking for high quality funds with good performance, high ratings, and of course, if possible, low expenses. Turning to my Merrill Lynch account, and yours of course will be different, and the reallocation process document gives you some links to different brokerage firms and a general research tool that's available online, and there are several for you to choose from. Looking at the Merrill Lynch account under their research tab, we're going to be investing in what are called ETFs, or exchange traded funds. There are several advantages to ETFs that you can research on your own, but you can certainly choose mutual funds if that works best for you. A tremendous amount of tools. I'm going to scroll down and select their ETF screening tool. Now, of course, your broker will have different tools available to them, but they'll all follow the same general idea. As you can see, first of all, a couple of things I want to point out. There are, at the moment, 1,283 possible fund choices, and we need to obviously narrow that down. And there are various filters that you can use where you can search. Merrill Lynch, in this case, actually offers the ability to kind of screen for you some of their top performing or top selected funds. We'll be able to look for ratings and also expenses. But let's start by going back to our target. The first thing we want to do is identify 2 mid-cap value fund choices. We're going to look on the Morningstar category and mid-cap value. We now see that there are 17 possible fund choices in the mid-cap value category. We're going to look at the performance tab, and then, as I mentioned before, Merrill actually has this thing that they call the Merrill Edge Select, which will allow you to boil these funds down to just the funds that Merrill likes. And for our purposes, and for my particular style, we're going to just use those choices. And that gets us down to 3. Now, you may use any time period, 5-year, 3-year, 1 year. We're going to go ahead and use 1 year. And if you click on that, it'll sort by highest performing funds. So we have 2 choices, ticker IJJ and ticker VOE. Now, we also mentioned we're looking for low expenses, so let's take a peek at the expense ratio. And in fact, those 2 funds that we had already previously selected, IJJ and VOE, do happen to be, if we sort this by expense, happen to be the 2 lowest expenses. So I'm comfortable using those. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste. Now we're going to go into the ticker column. And this is only a partial name, but that's okay. Vanguard Midcap. We already have chosen the percentages. I'm going to take IJJ and iShares S&P. Now, of course, you can choose any number of funds, any number of evaluation criteria. I'm just going ahead and following the guidelines that we offer in the reallocation process document. The next 2 funds that we know we want are high performing quality funds, but in the broad domestic equities category. So we're going to go back to our screener. We're going to take off mid-cap value, and we're going to go into the asset class. We know that we're looking for domestic, which is the same as US stock. What we have here are 28 possible candidates from amongst the US stock asset class. Going back to performance, we already know that we have Merrill Lynch's funds selected. You'll see that one of those funds we've already chosen, so we can unselect that and go ahead and sort by the highest 1 year. We also had already chosen VOE. So here we have 2 additional candidates that have very good performance, and we're going to go ahead and use those. Let's see how they do in terms of expenses. You may notice that those funds are further down the list in terms of their expenses. So let's go ahead and choose the first 2 and go see how these compare from a performance perspective. Again, no right or wrong answers. You may find a fund that has much better performance but slightly higher expenses. That is ultimately your decision. In our case, I think we're going to go with IJH, as we know has low expenses. And we're going to go with IJS, which we know is a very high performer. Again, no right or wrong answers. Continuing on to our sector funds, we want to find an energy fund and a financial fund. And find energy funds. Now, as it turns out, there are no funds that Merrill Lynch would suggest, and that doesn't mean that there's necessarily bad or good, but we go ahead and have to look at a slightly larger list, and we have 19 possibilities. I'm going to look at the ratings column to see how they compare on Morningstar and Lipper, and we can sort. We've got 5-star funds coming across here. Overall, we have a 5-star here. So we're looking for 2 funds. So XLE looks pretty good because it's a 5-star on Morningstar and Lipper. So let's use that as our energy choice. And we've already decided we're putting 5% of our portfolio in there. Now let's look for financials. So we remove energy. And now we have the 27 matching funds for financial. So let's go back to looking at our Morningstar and Lipper categories. We have a 5-star Morningstar here, which is also a 5-star Lipper. But we have 2, so let's go ahead and click on both of these, and then let's look back at performance to see how they do compared to each other. And IAI, in fact, is the top performing fund in that asset class, so let's go ahead and take that. By the way, if you hover over the name, you'll see that the entire name pops up. So these are US iShares US broker-dealer securities, and we've already selected the percentage. Now let's go into Europe developing and in the internationals, see if we can find something there. Now there's nothing that's particularly European developing. So repeating the process, we look at ratings, sort the highest to the top, and we have 2 5-star Morningstar, one that happens to be a 5-star Lipper. Let's look at their performance, sort the highest to the top, and it appears like this is the best performing fund that also was highly rated. And this is the Xtrackers MSCI European Hedged Equity. Lastly, we need 2 funds in our fixed income category. We're going to do a US high yield. And actually there's 2 categories that fall into high yield. We'll select them both. Check Merrill. And in this case there's actually 3 that they like. So let's go ahead and take the top performing high yield fund. This is the iShares Broad US Dollar High Yield Corporate Bond. And then we said we'd put the other 10% into the highest performing bond category. So we're going to go look for a broad market, either municipal or taxable bond. We're going to go back up to the top. We notice that that's a high yield bond. another high yield bond, another high yield bond. So it's really not until we get to this PZA fund where we have a fund that is not in the same favored category. And this is the AMT Free Municipal Bond. We've now completed our research. We're ready for the next step, which we'll cover in the next video.